Hello and welcome! If you followed my channel recently, you probably saw that I was busy with a restoration of a Packard Bell 486 PC, which had a damaged mainboard. Maybe you also remember that one generous viewer donated a similar Packard Bell mainboard to me, which I also showed during the restoration. Well, that mainboard was not the only one part which was in that amazing donation. I got more mainboards, which I will probably show you during upcoming repairathons and restoration videos, but also some exciting sound cards. I mentioned already a couple of times that I have a collection of sound cards, and this is something what has a special place in my retro heart. This is why I am so excited to take a look at what was included in the donation. I will not be able to cover all of them in one video, but let's take everything out of the box and select some cards which we would take a closer look at today. And here they are. First of all, most of the cards have no slot brackets, but those can be 3D printed. Most of the cards were very dusty, so I already washed and dried them for a better inspection. And the first one is from Aztec. This is based on the AZ2320 chip. It is Sound Blaster Pro 2.0 compatible card with integrated original Yamaha OPL3 chip. A very late ISO sound card, highly integrated chip, simple, and due to its great DOS compatibility, an uncomplicated sound card for a DOS retro machine. The next one is an Opti 82C924 based card. This card design was produced by many manufacturers. For example, in Germany it was sold under the name Typhoon Media Sound, and this was exactly the sound card which I had in my PC around 1995. It is also a good Sound Blaster Pro 2.0 clone. The Opti IC, which is used on this card, has no integrated FM synthesizer, and at the first glance you will not find any Yamaha OPL3 chip on it. However, this LS262 IC is an exact clone of the Yamaha YMF262, also known as OPL3. Back in the days, many shady manufacturers didn't want to pay Yamaha for their expensive ICs, so they've reverse engineered the design and started to reproduce those ICs under all kind of fake names. LS262 was one of those. Anyway, this sound card sounds pretty much exact like Creative Sound Blaster Pro 2.0, including the FM synthesizer. Furthermore, it has the Crystal CS4231 chip, which provides Windows Sound System 16-bit stereo sound as well. It supports various CD-ROM interfaces, and this is also a sound card which I can recommend for a DOS retro machine. Now we get to a little bit of history. A real Creative Sound Blaster 1.5. A hard to find card today. I don't have it yet in my collection, so I'm very glad about it. As you see, this card has some missing ICs which I will have to install, but luckily all of them are easy to find. It also has a broken volume control wheel, and otherwise the card looks fine. Next one is an early ESS sound card, also a Sound Blaster Pro 2.0 clone based on the ES688F chip, which doesn't have integrated FM synthesizer as far as I remember. Later, ESS chips got own FM implementation, but this earlier chip also required external FM synthesizer. And here we have again that shady LS262 as you see. By the way, those FM chips, just like the original Yamaha YMF262, required a digital to analog converter, a small chip which is always nearby. Here you can find it on the ESS card under the name LS512. And on the Opti card under the name LS215. However, just as with the LS262, it's just a clone of a accordant Yamaha chip. One feature which makes this card interesting for older computers is that the setup is made using jumpers. You don't need any additional software, just set the jumpers as you need those and play your games. The next two cards are MyroConnect 34 Wave. I have already one of those in my collection. It is a sound card with an integrated modem, although on one card the modem has been removed. This is the only one card from this collection which came with a slot bracket. This card has a Sound Blaster emulation with integrated general MIDI support and OPL3 emulation. It has terrible DOS compatibility and sounds everything else but good for DOS gaming. Still, this is a very unique exemplar and I would like to make a dedicated video about it one day. Okay, this one is interesting too. I didn't have it in my collection yet. That's why I'm also excited to have it in my hands. I'm not sure if it's true, but you can see the name Profi Media in this name. And it was used later by TerraTech, which actually made high-quality audio hardware. However, as far as I know, this card has terrible audio quality because it has badly designed PCB and all chips are dedicated, which makes this card again quite interesting on the other hand. It looks very old, like the Sound Blaster which I showed before, but this card is actually a couple of years younger with its CD-ROM interfaces. One interesting thing here is that LS212 and the LS215 write from it. As you remember, the LS215 is the same digital to analog converter which we already saw on the Opti sound card, which always comes in pair with the FM OPL3 IC. And the LS212 is again the same clone of the Yamaha YMF262 as we saw it on the other cards under the name LS262 before. I know this LS212 and it sounds again exactly like the original from Yamaha. As I said, I believe that this card has terrible sound quality, but it looks cool with all those ICs. Looks like you can set it up completely using only jumpers, and if it has a good Sound Blaster compatibility, it might be a good option for a retro PC. And last but not least, this one looks like a Sound Blaster 2.0 clone. It uses a microcontroller, ATC51, probably as a DSP, digital sound processor. And above it we have another shady IC named SB2.0. And since I don't see any Yamaha ICs on this PCB, I'd assume that this is another Yamaha chip clone. This time YM3812, also known under OPL2. Just compare these two cards. The microcontroller which is used here is the one which is missing on the Creative Sound Blaster here. These two ICs are for the SAA 1099 ICs, so-called CMS or Game Blaster. This socket is for the named YMF3812 OPL2 FM synthesizer. On this card, I think that this SC801 is the clone. And this empty IC, well, I think we will come later to it. I already sorted out some ICs which we would need today, so let's take a closer look at some of the cards now. I will start with the most famous card, and this is the CT1312B. Also known as Creative Sound Blaster 1.5. As I already said, this card has some missing ICs, but it also has a ripped off volume wheel. This has to be replaced as well, but let's talk about the chips first. So, this is a socket for Yamaha YM3812 synthesizer, also known as OPL2. Let's see. I should have one in my spare parts. Ah, here it is. Original YM3812 from the year 1994. Let's put some dioxide first. The next is the Philips SAA 1099 square wave synthesizer. There are two sockets, each one for the left and the right channel. Creative Music System, also known as Game Blaster, was in stereo compared to OPL2. However, software sounding sinus wave of the Yamaha synthesizer, which was originally used on the Adlib sound cards, was very well adopted by the game industry and later incorporated by Creative in its Sound Blaster cards, one of which you can see here. Hopefully, today we can compare both synthesizers with each other. Now to the DSP, a digital sound processor. On this card, an 8051 compatible MCU is used for that purpose. And here is one interesting thing. I bought this set of chips in China, all from the same seller, ordered as a batch of 3. Well, do you notice my confusion? They all pretend to be Atmel 8089C51, but they all look different. Obviously, at least 2 of them are fake, or at least relabeled. Okay, at the first glance, this one looks original to me. Now take a look at this one. The first thing which jumps into my eye is the label. It is not white and looks to me like a laser written label, which is often used on fake ICs. Otherwise, the chips look very similar. These circles are in the same places on both chips. This hole near the first pin and the orientation notch look identical as well. Now notice the date code on both ICs. This one is from 2005 week 17 and this one is from 2011 week 20. Let's turn around the ICs. Here again they look extremely similar. All the circles are again in the same places and the inscription looks identical, but as you can see on this chip we have 0517, just like on the other side, and here we have 0523, which would mean 2005 week 23 and not 2011 week 20, which is written on the other side. And now look at the third IC. It looks completely different from the top side. There are no circles. It looks like it was sanded and the inscription looks again completely different. The date code is 1612, which would mean 2016 12th week. There is no marker on the pin 1 and also orientation notch looks different. On the other side, the circles are smaller and misaligned too. And the date code is 0646 and not 1612 like on the front side. This IC was definitely relabeled as well. So I have here 3 ICs which all look different. Left one is most probably genuine AT89C51 and the other 2 are fake or relabeled. Now guess what? I tested them and all 3 are working. I can't definitely tell that they are same in every detail, but at least they are all working as AT89C51. So at least 2 of them were just relabeled, but as long as they do work, I don't mind. Still, be careful when buying ICs from strange sources. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. To make the MCU usable in the Sound Blaster, it has to be programmed. But how? And here a great Snark project comes into play, which is about very much precise reverse engineering of the original Creative Sound Blaster. It provides not only the complete PCB layout, but also the firmware which is required to program the MCU. I already wrote the firmware onto the chip. As I said, the volume well was ripped off the PCB and needs to be replaced. I guess it's time for the first test. Ouch! The MCU got very hot. Something is wrong. Oh boy, I see the problem. Look at all of the ICs on this card. This, and this, all of them are looking to the left. Of course, as mindless as I am, I inserted the MCU also in the same direction. But just look at the markings on the PCB. This chip has to be placed the other way around, unlike all of the other chips. Hopefully it survived my mistake. Okay, looks like some sound is audible, but it is very silent and only on one channel. Maybe I damaged the IC as I inserted it the other way around and this somehow results in such a behavior. I programmed the other IC with the Snark firmware as well. Let's see if it changes something. Nope, same issue. Okay, I think I know what's going on. I bought this regulator which should fit, but again, it was sold as stereo. But it turned out to be mono and with slightly different pinout, which grounded one channel and deregulated the other one, which made it sound very silent. I had once again to look into the Snark Barker project to find the proper part number, and luckily, after a while, I could finally find it. And here we go, let's give it another try. Yeah, that sounds much better. We have FM. And we have digital sound as well. Nice. Now let's test the CMS using Monkey Island. Works like charm. Here, compare it to the sound of the Yamaha OPL2. You can clearly hear the softer sound of the sinus wave generated by the Yamaha chip, but it is in mono. The square wave of the CMS sound is more edgy, but on the other hand it is stereo. Which sound you prefer is of course a matter of taste, but the point is, this sound card is completely working. What's left to do? I don't have the original slot bracket, so I printed one on a 3D printer. Not perfect, but better than nothing. I also made a volume wheel, however I need a very tiny screw to fix this in place, which I currently don't have at hand. No problem, for now I'll just store the card as is and find a screw later. With a pair of active speakers you usually don't need any volume wheel anyway. Okay, next patient on my list today is the Sound Blaster 2.0 clone. Here on the right you can see the original Creative Sound Blaster 2.0 from my collection. Let's go through the ICs and find the similarities. First of all, take a look at this YM3812 FM synthesizer. On the clone card it must be this SC801. It obviously has more pins, but I still think this is a clone of the Yamaha IC. Here we have a smaller IC, and I'm pretty confident that this is the digital to analog converter. The OPL2 chip, just as OPL3 later, was always paired with a digital to analog converter. This one is also a bit bigger than the original. Here how it looks on the original card, a much smaller IC near the Yamaha chip. I found a discussion on Vogoons about this exact card, and my assumption was right. The SC801 is an OPL2 clone. Some IC lags just seem to be unused and could be reduced. Probably this has been done to look differently and to avoid any lawsuits. Now we have this SMD IC here, which is probably the same as the CT1336A glue logic on the original card. And these ICs must be DSPs, similar to the one which I installed on the last card. As you see on the clone, it is again an 8051 microcontroller, just like the one on the Snark Barker or the Sound Blaster 1.5. And now to the interesting part. We have here 3 empty sockets, and if you watch my channel for longer, maybe you remember my CMS reverse engineering project where I made a logic IC which switches between OPL2 and CMS on the original Sound Blaster 2.0 sound cards. Well, these two ICs are the Philips SAA1099 synthesizers, like on the last card, and this empty socket is for the named logic chip. I'm curious if the reverse engineered logic, which I made for the original creative card, would also work in this clone card. Let's just give it a try. I have some more SAA1099 ICs in my spare parts, so they are not a problem. The GAL chip I will just take directly from the Sound Blaster 2.0 card. It is already programmed with the firmware which I reverse engineered. By the way, that project is open source just like everything I do, so feel free to watch the video about it and follow the link to the project in the description. A little bit of deoxide. On the original card by Creative, the CMS jumper has to be removed to enable the CMS feature. On the clone card, the CMS jumper is set, but the ICs were not installed, so I think here it's the same. The jumper has to be removed. I'll put it on joystick enable pins instead, which looks to be disabled. And first, let's test the OPL2 sound once again using Monkey Island. Works fine and sounds to me like a genuine Yamaha YM3812, to be honest. Now the moment of truth. Let's see if CMS is working. And it works absolutely flawlessly. I guess I have to update the README of my CMS project. The digital sound seems to work as well. There is one thing I would like to try. If you remember that SC801 chip is longer than the OPL2 by Yamaha, I thought maybe, just maybe, this is an OPL3 which was used on the Sound Blaster Pro 2.0. Let's try first OPL2 settings in descent. Sounds absolutely like genuine Yamaha OPL2 chip. Okay, let's switch to OPL3. Nope, this is obviously wrong. OPL3 is a stereo chip. It's like two OPL2 in one package, each for left and right channel. However, we can clearly hear that only one channel is played. So the SC801 clone chip used on the card is definitely just an OPL2. However, I'm glad to report that it works. Also CMS is working and the same CMS logic IC can be taken, which is used on the original Creative Sound Blaster 2. That's nice. All what's missing is a slot bracket again. I guess I'll have to print another one, but I'll do it off camera. And today's video was already long enough. I'll continue testing these sound cards, and if you have an interest on particular one from this stack, please write a comment below and I'll see if I can make a video about it too. So far, I'm super glad to finally have an original Creative Sound Blaster 1.5 in my collection and also one cool Sound Blaster 2 clone, where I could test my CMS solution. A big thank you very much once again for this great donation, and to all the viewers also big thank you for staying with me even though I recently don't have quite as much time for the hobby. Thank you for watching and goodbye.